I'll share this. One time I was laying down and there's this operating light looking down upon me, and I could look up into the light, and I was in my dream state. And above me were four alien beings, and they were just having like a chit chat conversation while looking down on me and putting acupuncture needles in my body very slowly and meticulously. And they're just talking about their day. And I'm looking up and it's like, what the is going on here? And they look down and they go, he's awake. And they threw all the needles in me at once. And I sat up, oh my God. And then I downloaded to Robert what I saw. And then I went back to sleep. And that was it.
And I was there wide awake.
And he was awake.
He scared the bejesus out of me, and I'm just like,
And he's snoring again. Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Beitz. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. Today we're joined by Rob Grover and Gary Logan, who are the founders of the Journeymen Collective, the alternative wellness company creating luxury guided magic mushroom retreats at their centre in British Columbia, Canada. Since 2018, they've hosted CEOs, entrepreneurs, athletes, actors, couples, and small groups invested in the highest level of self-discovery and personal development through sacred plant medicine. Rob and Gary, welcome to the podcast.
thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Doug. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So we had a chat a week or two ago, and after that, I'm thinking, where were you guys 30 or 40 years ago? Like, why couldn't you two have been born 30 or 40 years earlier and did what you did back then? You would have saved me from having the worst day of my life. And and why couldn't you have also had like sponsorships for 14-year-old boys who the most they had to their name was their lunch money they'd saved up for the week? I had my own magic mushroom experience back then, and it wasn't guided. It wasn't in a luxury place. There was nothing. It was very opposite from what I can gather that you guys do. So it didn't go so well, and to say the least, because I was just out for a bit of fun. I wasn't out to expand my horizons. So so tell us, how did like for a start, the name the Journeyman, like collective, has that got any significance, or you plucked out of thin air, or?
It was plucked out of thin air.
Totally, like everything else. It came to me in the forest. We were trying to create a name for the offering that we're presenting, and we sort of played the name back and forth. Well, we provide journeys for people, and
The journey people just doesn't have
it just doesn't have the same ring. And it's like, okay, so we're the men, we're the journeymen, and what are we collecting? We're collecting other people. So we became with the Journeymen Collective. It's not that people mistake us that we just work with men. We work with all humans. So so we came up with the Journeyman Collective, and it's who we are.
It's catchier than the Journey Person Collective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Journey human.
Journey
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I hear you. Yeah. All right. And so tell us, you've got background in all sorts of things in self-improvement of yourselves and other people, but then how did this come together? Since 2018, you started this up, so how many years before that have you guys been doing mushroom trips yourselves?
Before 2018, zero. For me, myself, Gary. There was no exploration in that, maybe with marijuana and weed during theater school, because all thespians supposedly do weed. That's what I was trained to do. No, that's what we partaked in. But I think my journey began when I went to theater school at 17 years old. They work on your physical and your mental also, breaking down habits that interfere with your performance. So they sort of scrape away all the habitual patterns that your parents and society has put upon you, and then you create who you truly are to represent yourself, and then to represent the character which you're portraying. So 2 years of theater school helped a lot of my self-discovery. I took time off, traveled the world, explored different areas of the world, and came back to Canada and got back into theater again. And somebody suggested I move to England to go to theater school there. So I thought that was a great idea. So I'll go to theater school for a couple of months and then I'll see what happens from there. So I went to theater school, and in that program in London, they introduced a program called the Alexander Technique, mind body conscious awareness training. It's sort of in a nutshell. The teacher came up to me and said, Gary, I think you need to become an Alexander teacher. And I said, I'm here to be an actor. I'm not here to be a teacher. Well, fast forward after 9 years of living in England, moved back to Canada and met up with an Alexander teacher in Vancouver. And shortly after that, they opened up a school. And then she just handed me an application form. You are now becoming an Alexander teacher. So I got the message. It was pretty clear, and went back to school for 3 years. And in that time, I discovered metaphysical teaching at a center called the Unity. It's not church, but it's sort of like church, but not church. It's non-denominational metaphysical teaching. When I walked in and introduced to the or the minister or the gentleman that was giving the, I would say it was a lecture, not a sermon. I sort of felt at home. I felt I get this guy, and I really understand where he's coming from and explaining things. So I embarked on that journey for still going on for 25 years with them, just listening and understanding metaphysical teaching. In that time, I also did a healing touch program through Vancouver Hospital with the nurses. A friend of mine says, you got healing hands. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? She says, I think you need to go to the Vancouver General Hospital to the nurses and go on this course. So I said, yes, and embarked on a 2-year journey in healing touch, tapped into my spirit guides and guardians and those who were watching over me, because I wasn't clairvoyant, but there were clairvoyants in the course that could say, Gary, there's a gentle giant supporting behind you. And I went, cool. So I developed that and fine-tuned that, and bringing it all together through metaphysical teaching, Alexander Technique, and healing touch, and a number of personal development programs brought us to what we call the collective of what we know and what we bring forth to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, yeah. I mean, I've had a similar journey to that, but very different. In that when I was 20, I started attending a out there Christian church. Like that was at the extreme edge of things, and sort of evolved through all that. And you're sort of, saying you attended we'll say, non-Christian church, but probably had similar teachings, but different. Ultimately, at the time, we would have probably cast the devil out of you lot. But now, that's how I would have looked at it 20 years ago.
Right.
And but now I look at it like, oh, we were learning the same stuff, but just from different points of view, and the people who were teaching us would have been heavily opposed to your teacher, I'm sure, at the time.
Of course.
Yeah, but now it's just the same thing approached from different angles, and yeah, wonderful. And my only foray into acting was in the final year of primary or elementary school. I was away sick one day, and when I came back to school the next day, I'd been nominated for the lead role in the play, and I'm like, because I wasn't there, and I was like, what? And so we did a play. I had no idea, and it was, yeah, it went okay, I think, but yeah, I never ever did acting again. It was something that really frightened and scared me. Yeah, yeah, and I love public speaking and stuff now, but back then it was, yeah, not a fun thing to do. But yeah, my artistic talents were never developed at all. Mum got piano lessons for my sisters, but us boys didn't get piano lessons. We just had to go outside and play on the swings. So anyway, yeah, excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what about you, Rob?
Yeah, so for me, back in my university days, more than 20 years ago now, 25 years ago, I had experimented with mushrooms recreationally. And there were a few times that the mushrooms really took a hold of me and like said, hey, this isn't a toy, this isn't something to play with. And it was a very challenging uh, trip, shall I say, because there's a definite difference between a trip and a journey. And we just wanted to have fun, but the mushroom wanted to teach me a few things. And uh, yeah, it was a challenging few trips that I had. Mushrooms, a little bit of LSD, but nothing too frequent, but enough to know that, again, it wasn't a toy, it was something to be revered. And so for the longest time, I didn't touch it. And then I started having I guess, a sacred relationship with marijuana. And someone came into our lives and introduced guided journeys to us. And then that called forth at a very, very deep level. And I saw this quintessential image of like 5 mushrooms in a meditation. I was like, okay, it looks like I might be going on a journey. And at that time, someone had mentioned it to me, and I just thought, I know what that is. I know what that's like. I don't need that. And it just kept coming up and up and up over and over again. And my awakening, I guess, took place in 2003. I started to see energy around people, and my scientific mind didn't know what the heck was going on because I worked in corporate, undergraduate degree, master's degree in science, in the scientific realm and earth sciences and geology, and all of a sudden there were metaphysical phenomena happening to me, and there was no one around me at that time that could explain what was happening. And that's what started my path, a very firm left-hand turn into wanting to understand, like, what the heck is going on with me, who can help me, who can help me understand what's going on. And I went through a battery of tests through allopathic Western medicine, and everyone's like, nope, there's nothing wrong with you. I was like, no, there is. I shouldn't be seeing color around people, and blues and reds and pinks and oranges. And I'd be in a boardroom meeting and I would see like energy around people. And so that was sort of what started me on this like insatiable quest just to know more. And was like, I'm pretty sure we haven't been taught everything we're supposed to know. And I even remember sitting in a high-rise building on the 29th floor of corporate Canada, and thinking, like, really? Okay, I just finished my undergrad. I've got it made. I've I'm successful now that I'm working in corporate Canada. And I remember thinking, was like, is this the end to my learning? Like, am I never ever going to learn really much more? And I think even posing that question also catapulted me into that next phase of deeper learning on the metaphysical, spiritual, mental, and emotional bodies of how those 3 bodies affect the physical. So, yeah, fast forward to 2015, I finally departed corporate and started my own coaching practice, entrepreneurs, executives, mindset coaching. And even when I did that, I was like, okay, I'm almost in the pocket. And it wasn't quite there, but I knew I was getting close. I could just feel it day to day. I was like, yeah, I'm on the right path. I could feel it. Just like it lit my heart up to be helping people in that way, and just helping people be brave to ask questions within their corporate careers, and promotions and raises and all these different things were happening for people. And just because they're willing to think outside the box. And then 2017, we got married, and all heck broke loose after that. Gary's mom passed away, and that's when we were really, I guess, shaken. Like, holy crap, it's true what they say, life is short. And we would get up every morning and walk down the hall, and Gary's mom's room was vacant. There was no one there anymore. And all of a sudden, I was like, wow, like, there was just this like repeating question of like, what are you doing here? you can be doing more. What did you really come here for? And it was on repeat. And she passed away in November of 2017. And I think, again, just by asking those questions of like, what are we here for? This human very quickly came into our life. She, I think, departed as quickly as she arrived. And she introduced us to a medicine man uh, in the Gulf Islands off of Vancouver, British Columbia. And my very first journey, I was like, this is a one-time thing. I'm only doing this once. And I came back from that experience, and I could probably talk to you for about 2 hours just about that one experience, but I'll digress. And the big synopsis from that was that I found the greater truths within myself, that there is a lot more than what we've been told, that we are supported. There is a collective supporting every single individual on the planet if we learn how to listen, we learn how to feel and sense on a deeper way, in a deeper way. And I found joy again on a deeper level. Like, it expanded my capacity for joy. It expanded my capacity for being brave enough to have those deeper level conversations with my clients at the time. And then the other piece, the biggest piece that dropped in was like, this is the next level of who you are. You are to step into being a guide to guide people through journeys. And it's like, what? Are you kidding me? And that's what I saw. I've since having some of the visions that I had post journey, I started to recognize I've always had visions in the past, like internal visions, and I'd always followed them. But I only semi unconsciously knew that they were visions. And now I know that when I get those internal pings and I see things, I always follow them. And it's much more, I'm quicker on the uptake than I was. So Gary went on a journey after seeing the shift in me.
Because when he came home, I said, mushrooms can do this.
A
guided mushroom journey could do this. It's like, I'm looking at him, it's like, you've shifted. No, the depression had been released, grief had moved on. So I thought, well, I'll speak to the medicine man, and I did. And it was around my birthday, so I gifted this journey to myself on my birthday, and it was the best birthday present one could ever give oneself. I shifted out of depression and grief. I also had visions of working with the medicine. And when I went home and told Robert my visions of what was shown, he says, I had similar. And we looked at each other, as like, what does that look like? And that's how we moved forward, working with the medicine man, and launched ourselves into the Journeymen Collective after that.
Wow, awesome. And when you were talking there, both of you, like just right at the end there, I just thought I could see Mom watching then, like happy, that
Yeah.
her passing had brought you so much anguish and grief, but then brought you so much delight and steering you to more of your path. And maybe you're at the pinnacle of your path of life now. Maybe you're still at the bottom of the of it. Like, because like you said, Rob, like things you thought, with your coaching practice, you were sort of there, but you knew you weren't quite, but it was good, it was fulfilling, and then now you've moved to this, and maybe this is it, or maybe there's a lot more, but it was just, yeah, I just saw Mum there, like delighted back those years ago, with the two of you, like, you've got it, awesome. And Rob, I've just got a question for you too, that you talked, back in those 2015-ish or something, you're in the corporate boardrooms and you're seeing different colors around people. Two parts of that. One, were you able to interpret those colors at all? Like, saw people get angry or excited or joyful. Did you notice changes in those colors? And, for a start, did you notice or could interpret that?
Now I can. Now I know I've sort of built like an internal database of what those colors mean. So like if I see someone with a bright sort of lapis lazuli royal blue flash of light around them, I know that I have to ask them a question about what's the vision for your life. If I see like a sort of turquoise blue tealy color, it's typically connected to something that they may be stifled with their authentic voice. So like, what is it that you really want to say right now? And people will just sort of like look. So I don't necessarily say I see X, Y, or Z around you, but it was probably a good 15 years of it just happening around me until I guess I deepened my understanding, deepened my study in the metaphysical world. And there was an executive coach and former minister sitting at our dining room table, and pulling oracle cards were sort of voodoo to him. And so he was reluctantly pulling a card from Alana Fairchild's Crystal Mandala deck. And she's a brilliant Aussie. And he pulled the card. And just as he pulled it, there was this big white flash of light, like an orb of light over his head. And he like one eye open, flipped the card. His name is Matt. The card was original or Ascended Master White Matthew, which was all about original self. And he was like, I don't know who I am, and I want to discover who I am. So when that happened, it was like ding. It's like I was able to connect a database of study that I had with what was happening with the actual energies that I was seeing. So there are no mistakes. Like I started studying and learning about ascended masters and archangels and all of that etheric quantum world like back in 2003, and then my human didn't make the connection between the two for like another 15 years. But I knew that I now know that I had to sort of fully understand each one of those energies in a different way, and before the actual conscious connection happened.
Wow, very interesting. So you still see the colors today?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're the third person I've interviewed who sees them. Yeah, the first gentleman, when he was a child, he had a near-death experience, and ever since, no, sorry, as a teenager, he had a near-death experience, and ever since then, he's seen them and sees a lot of other things too. But yeah, interesting. And so I think that was the second part of my question was, do you still see them? And, can you, and so now so by the sound of it, you're using them to assist people with their journeys by questions that you may choose to ask them, etc.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, is like, if I can do it, so can you. And then you might think, well, why would I want to do that? It's like you are turning on a subtle sense. So you can see energy, you can smell it, you can taste it, you can touch it. And those are just subtle senses that most of us haven't been trained to see and sense. And I'm not saying that, hey, if you come on a journey with the Journeymen Collective, you're going to be able to see color or you see energy. What happens for a lot of people is that it's their unique way of perceiving and sensing energy comes online for them. And I guess it's sort of like there's a divine plan that you're only going to be given what you can handle in that moment. Sometimes there's a little bit of a surge that may happen. I think that's sort of what happened to me in back in 2003. There was an energetic surge that moved through my body and my being, and it was like, okay, I'm starting to see things around people that are not necessarily three-dimensional.
And so just to go back to 2003, I don't know if I missed something. Was there some specific thing that happened, or it was just it just happened one day, or can you pinpoint?
Yeah. I was visiting my parents back home in Nova Scotia on the east coast of Canada, and I had a flu bug, which we actually call upgrades. and I'm pretty sure that that's what it was. It was an upgrade, and there was like a pretty high fever and um, shaking, and I think it rewired some things in my brain to sort of start seeing things. So it was a spontaneous awakening that transpired after I had a flu bug, and that's often like the physical body has to let go of some of the old data, some of the old information in the cells, the atoms, and the molecules, and I think the virus code or the code was trying to reroute and rewrite some neurological pathways and update my system so that it could start. I guess it's almost like the second chapter of my life. So the first chapter was very much in the scientific world, and I had sort of said like I don't need anything else but science in my life, and I was raised Roman Catholic, and I was like I don't need that anymore. And then the universe was like, oh, you think so, do you? So it was like a different level of spirituality that wanted to come forth, and I used my scientific mind to ask a lot of questions.
So, and I guess at that time too, in 2003, you could have easily said, why is this happening to me? Why have I, I've come to visit my parents and now I've got this flu bug. And is it happening to you or for you, and now things happen through you. And so it's, yeah. There's a lot of things that happen that we need to maybe accept or not be so down on ourselves or so judgmental of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Staying out of the separation of judgment and leaning into acceptance of where you're at in the present moment and deepening. It's like expanding your capacity to trust and surrender that, hey, there's something else. There's something else going on here. There's something else that's bumping me along. And we jokingly say a lot of the time with our clients, we're all in a pinball machine together, and Gary and Rob are the two little flappers on the bottom, and I'll just like bop you along and um, be by your side and guide you through a journey. And
so you don't drop back in that black hole.
You keep flipping us back into the game.
Exactly. Stay in it.
Stay in the game. Stay in the game. And I think that's what we all have. We all have those like unknown. We all have our unknown collective, and I think we're here to help people recognize that each and every one of us have our own collective support that's bopping us along. Like, hey, look left, look right, or maybe look straight ahead. And it's like, oh, look at that. Who would have thought that?
Yeah, we need a different metaphor for the younger ones who are listening, because I can remember like saving up I don't know what coins you have over there. Like in America, the quarters, we have 20-cent coins, and that was a pinball machine in my teenage years. It was just 20 cents every go. So you were just getting every 20-cent coin you could, and then down to the pinball parlor, and away you would go, and just, man, they used to make so much money out of those things. Yep. Yeah, cool. So now things, very interesting, like hearing your backgrounds. You're both obviously very advanced beings. It sounds like you came to the planet as you've had more than one or two incarnations, had like many, 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 many. And you've allowed yourselves to, in this life now, evolve to and allow these things to come forth, and one you didn't allow, it just happened, spontaneously. You got this flu bug and boom. But I guess you were probably conducting your life in a way that it was beneficial to you and to others to have that happen at that time. You didn't sort of run off crazy with that new thing, or and I guess, in like you say in the beginning, it probably didn't, the penny didn't drop, that it was you know, like a very beneficial thing. It was just like you went and got medical tests and things to try and did the medical profession believe you?
Oh gosh, no.
Mm.
No, they thought that I was possibly depressed. Of course, I didn't tell them. I was quite discerning in how much I was willing to give them, with respect to what was really going on. And I was sort of, I was smart enough to figure out ways to like get the tests that I needed. So like MRIs and CAT scans and blood work and all these different neurological tests, and seeing a specialist for neurology. And um, yeah, like they all just were like, nope, nothing's wrong with you. I even went into a MRI and I had a full blown migraine. And so I was like, okay, like something has to show up on like on the MRI if I had a migraine. And nope, it came back clear. I'm like, what? How on earth? And it was interesting too, because at that time, I remember I started just seeing different things like Reiki or acupuncture, which acupuncture is pretty commonplace for a lot of people nowadays. And I started seeing different signs and energy this and quantum that. And just, I remember taking the bus to the university because I was doing grad school then. And I remember just seeing different little things that were like popping up. Signs were popping up. Literal signs were popping up to say, hey, maybe go here or go there. And so I started venturing into different energy classes. And when Gary and I met in 2007, I was already on my way to taking lots of metaphysical courses and trainings. And he was like, what are you doing? Why are you taking all of these? I was like, I don't know, but I'm supposed to. I need to. And I'm not sure why I need to. But it was all the different things that we have both done. It's been a training to get us to where we are at now, so that we had a solid foundation in the spiritual, in the mental, in the emotional, and the physical realms, so that we could coalesce all the different strands, all the different life paths of Rob and Gary into this massive pillar that people just gravitate towards, and allows them to find their own pillar of strength of like, oh, now I understand why I've done this and this and this. And it just helps people to find what their create what their purpose is. It's not about finding what the purpose is, it's about them creating.
You know, we would set ourselves up that certain things would be more enjoyable for us so that we would gravitate towards them, I guess. Something, and you were just talking about you're going through your medical test. It reminded me, I don't know if have you ever seen a movie, it's kind of pretty old these days, with John Travolta in, and I think it was called Phenomenon.
Oh yeah.
And where did he get struck by lightning or something? And then he had all these new phenomenal powers or something.
Yes, I think so.
And in that one, I think he ended up having a brain tumor and dying, you know, but he had these, I can't even remember what powers he had, whether he could heal people or whatever. So I guess if you'd seen that movie back when this all happened, you may have been a bit apprehensive, like, have I got a brain tumor or something, like, you know, because that's how they portrayed these superpowers. It wasn't anything spiritual or magical. It was, you know, this pressure on his brain. And so for a year, he had these superpowers and then he was no more. So yeah, I could see the apprehensive and want to like find out what's going on with me. Yeah. Is this going to be very short-lived, or yeah, where do we go here? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there was a recognition too of like the whole like not predestined, but soul agreement that, hey, I signed the dotted line to drop into this specific family to learn these specific lessons. And part of that too was like, I grew up in a very rural area of Nova Scotia, community of like 200 people. little tiny school of like 50 people from like kindergarten to grade 6. And I didn't recognize this until later on in life, but I was always highly empathic and I could feel things and feel people. And I'd go to the nearest town, and every Friday night, our family would typically go into town and buy groceries and do that thing. And by the end of the evening, I wouldn't feel well because there were so many people around, even though there weren't that many, but it was more. And so it was like that the first 18 years of my life, it was like a testing ground for me to like really hone in on what it was like to be empathic, but I didn't recognize it for a couple of years after that.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. In 2017, a couple of years prior to that, I discovered this lady in California who taught Chinese face reading and different things like that. And then she put a book out on energy clearing early 2017. And I was on holidays in Thailand, sitting on the beach with my iPad there, and it was like, this pops up, this Jean's new book. So I download it straight onto Kindle and I start reading it, and I'm like fascinated. Finish reading the book, start searching on a website, and I see that in 2 months' time, she's running a once-a-year class for 5 days on how to clear energy. And I'm like, oh wow, this is really cool. Say to my wife, I'm going to America. My wife's like, lost the plot, mate. And anyway, she graciously let me go. And so to cut a long story short on that, I used to hate going to the shops with my wife, like where there's people, like lots of people and all this sort of stuff. I just like, oh, I just got to get out of there. Well, I came back from that first class and my life had changed like a lot. And my wife wanted to go to the shops, and I'm like, oh, here we go. And we've got a shop here called Big W, and it's basically inside, it's Walmart without groceries. It's all of the variety stuff from, and it is Walmart owned because all of the design and the color scheme and everything is exactly like Walmart, but just take the food section away. I'm like, usually as I walk through those doors and go in there, it's just like, oh, are you finished yet? Like, can we go? Like, I've had enough as we walk through the doors. I want to get out of there. And on this day, I started yawning as I walked through the door and went in. And on the energy clearing class, we were taught that sometimes, not always, but occasionally, when we're clearing someone else's energy, we may yawn, and that did start to happen at times, and it was always it looked the same for someone watching, but it feels different. And all of a sudden I go through the doors into this big supermarket, and I'm doing these yawns, and I'm sort of like putting my hand over my mouth a bit so it doesn't look so weird, because it's 11 o'clock in the morning. And we've walked around in there, and my wife says, oh, I'll go over and look at, whatever she wanted to look at. And I wandered off somewhere else trying to find something that I was interested in. And I was totally fine. And when we met back up again, half an hour later, I said, I'm fine. It's not bothering me here at all to be in this store. I'd learnt to not let all of that stuff come on to me. Now, and I hadn't deliberately, before I gone, sort of like my wife goes, oh, let's go to the shops in half an hour. I'm like, oh, I've got to get my pendulum out, and I've got to clear my energy. I've got to put up a force field. Nothing weird like that. Did nothing purposeful to create that moment, but it had happened. And so I started to recognize. And so as you were describing, I knew exactly, I'm like, oh yeah, I know that feeling. And yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting when you start to absorb the energy of other people and other places, and and for anyone listening, thinking, you guys are weird talking about that stuff. Like, tell me that you have not walked into a room and thought, shit, what happened in here?
Mhm.
They say you can cut the air with a knife. And fortunately, I don't go into too many rooms like that, but something's happened, and you're like,
Something's
well,
off. Yeah.
it's not enjoyable. And then
No.
some people might still be listening and think, oh, I don't really. But you also go to the other end. You go with somewhere, and and you're there, and someone says, oh, let's go. And you're like, oh, do we have to? Can't I just, it's enjoyable. And it could be a summer's day at the beach and you're in the water, and it's just, you know, the salt water and all that, like that environment is very, on certain days, well, you know, it's just beautiful. And you're thinking, oh, I'm getting sunburnt. Do I have to get out? You know, it's somewhere you want to be because the vibe, the environment, the energy is just conducive to us. So I just love the unseen realm. We just, you know, when we're exposed and experienced to it. And for you, Rob, I'm fascinated with this. Like I say, I love unseen. Now you're starting to see the colors. We've got probably an hour drive from our house. We've got a place called Crystal Castle, and they've, rightly or wrongly, they've imported the most gigantic crystals on the planet. And I mean, they've got some of these things, one set of these big things, they've been cut in half and they're like wings, and they're probably 15, 20 feet tall. Like, and then they've got another big egg that they've cut the side off, and 3 people can sit in it. It's not very comfortable with all the little crystal bits sticking up into you, but you can, I mean, there's massive crystals. And it's just, you know, an amazing place to go to. And I said all that, and now I've forgotten what I was going to say about that. Anyway, something about the energy down there, but anyway, yeah. So it's yeah, the unseen realm is, yeah, fascinating for me. But yeah, you know, now you're seeing these aura colors and things like that, and it's, yeah, so that fascinating. Oh, that's why I said about going there. They have a camera that will take a photo of you and show your aura. So we've been twice, and then fortunately the photographer sits there, and then, because they're kind of expensive photos, but they spend sort of 20 minutes with you afterwards when it's developed, and they explain what all the different colors around you mean and on different sides of the body. One side means what's happened, and the other side means what's going to happen, and then over the top of the head. And yeah, very, very interesting. So we've sort of got those in our little drawers, or, you know, with the dates written on the back of them. And yeah, yeah. So for me, that was fascinating. It was the unseen world was captured, and my physical eye could see it.
Yeah, I think more and more of that is going to be happening. So technology and science is always sort of catching up to what the mystics have long known. And I think that's where we're at in today's society. And people may call it woo, but the thing is there's something to it, because more and more of science is starting to show us that, hey, there is something to this. And we've even had people come through journeys whereby after one ceremony with us, and their resting heart rate drops by like 10 beats per minute.
Wow.
And it stays like that for quite a while. So there's like some quantitative data to say, hey, like there's a difference here. We've had people who had insomnia come through a journey and be like, I've slept through the night every night since my journey.
Or people start remembering their dreams.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, well, that would be a biggie for me, because that only happens like once a year. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, remember your dreams. That would be, yeah, phenomenal. And I'll tell you something I'd love to know about my dreams is the last few years you're supposed, there's something goes on in your brain when you dream, and it stops, it paralyzes your body, or not paralyzed, but stops you moving. You know, if you're dreaming that you're running or something, you don't really run, you steer. Well, often that turns off with me. And I think at night I'm sort of like one of the guardians of the galaxy, and I get into a lot of fights. And I only know about this because my wife's in the bed beside me. And yeah, like she says, man, here we go again. Like sometimes she goes, you almost levitate off the bed. You kick, you punch. One night I jumped out of the bed, fortunately onto the floor on my side, not onto her. And as I landed on the floor on all fours, like I woke and went, oh, shit. Like, you know, like my wife's going to go, you're an idiot, you know. So I crawl back to bed, sort of don't say anything, go back and I just go straight back to sleep. But yeah, no, I apparently yell a lot, and often punching and kicking, and Yeah. I
Gary's the same way.
Same way.
Yeah. So Gary, have you ever actually physically hit Rob?
A
Like
couple times,
accidentally?
but nothing
Kick,
major.
Accidentally
kick
while
the
you're
cat
asleep,
off the,
yeah. I'm not
yeah.
talking about
I
through the
kicked
day
the
when
cat
you're
off
awake.
the bed a couple of times.
Yeah, you've jumped off.
Up the cat.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, I think I just kicked the cat across the room.
Yeah. So you haven't found anything, Gary, like through your journeys that's revealed what's going on?
Oh yeah, I'm with you. The Galactic Federation. There's fights that are in different levels and realms of reality that we cannot see or be. But in the dream state, you're there. You're at different levels, but there's always a recurring dream with me. I'm always going back to the same place, and there seems to be a lot of conflict that's happening in my psyche. I assume that I need to get out, and fighting seems to be is more of a protecting than going to war or anything like that. So it's quite interesting. There are, yeah, many times I've been asleep and I've woken up Rob and says, I have to tell you this dream. And, or I've sat up like, oh my God, what has happened? I'll share this. One time I was laying down and there's this operating light looking down upon me, and I could look up into the light, and I was in my dream state. And above me were four alien beings, and they were just having like a chit chat conversation while looking down on me and putting acupuncture needles in my body very slowly and meticulously. And they're just talking about their day. And I'm looking up and it's like, what the is going on here? And they look down and they go, he's awake. And they threw all the needles in me at once. And I sat up, oh my God. And then I downloaded a Robert what I saw. And then I went back to sleep. And that was it.
And I was there wide awake.
He was wide
awake. He scared the bejesus out of me. And I'm just like,
and he's snoring again.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm there laying there, eyes wide open. It's like, oh my God,
are they coming for me?
Yeah,
totally.
And so, you're thinking, Rob, did he just dream that? Or did he go into another dimension and was it real? Or should I just calmly go back to sleep because he's just dreaming? Or did that really happen in another dimension? Yeah, wow.
It really happened. I truly believe it really, really happened.
It's all real.
Yeah.
Real reality. It's like there was a colleague of ours. She had been on a few journeys, and then she had been working with a psychotherapist. When she first started journeying, the colleague, let me clarify that, the colleague had just started journeying, and the psychotherapist said, well, you know, all of that, what you see in your journey isn't real. And it's like, wow, that's a slightly limited perception there, because when you're in a guided journey, it's like what's happening is you're in a dreamlike state, and it allows you to remember what's actually happening in that space. So Gary is very proficient at remembering his dreams, and it's all real. It's all just another part of who we innately are. And if someone sort of pushes up against that, that's fine and good. But think about it for a second. There are 8 billion ants known as humans roaming around this speck of dust, floating, hurtling through space, known as Earth, inside of a solar system, inside of a galaxy, inside of a giant cosmos. And you're okay just being in the mundane, thinking of, hey, yeah, I'm just here to do my 9 to 5 job and do whatever. It's like, open your mind a little bit and ask yourself the question, like, what the heck are we really doing here? It's like, even looking at the backdrop in your video right now, it's like, it's absolutely stunning. Like, it's a magical friggin' life that you can have when you start to open up your eyes into, like, hey, like, reality on the inside can start to mirror the reality on the outside. And if I start tapping into the magic, the mystical, the unknown pieces of me, then I get to find them on the outside. And then people, places, and things start syncing up to that. And life just becomes more magical. And it's like, wow, I can co-create with the quantum field. And it's just all about deepening our remembering that, hey, like maybe at some point in my life, before I came in to this human body, I might have signed an agreement to say, hey, you're going to forget. But we know, we have clients who and friends who have children, and they say to their mom or their dad at different times, like, I'm so glad that I came into your belly, mommy, and came through you. And the mom just sitting there like, what? Wow. Oh my goodness. Because most of our friends and our clients are aware to some extent, and she could feel the truth in what he said, that he chose to come through her. And yeah, there's so much to wonder about.
Mm-hmm.
And when we step into that wonder world, like the number of questions that we can ask are unlimited, and the number of answers are also unlimited as to what we can receive if we're just willing to like break a few of the old paradigms and own our own shadow side. And just like Gary often asks, like, how is that working out for you when someone starts complaining about something happening in their life? Because it's like this old record on repeat. And it's like, well, how about you just stop telling that story and go write a new one? So many people haven't been given the almighty sword known as the pen, so they can rewrite their story and rewrite their life. And a journey is one way. Going to America to do your energy uh, quantum clearing course, that was another way. So for your listeners, it's like just be curious of like, hey, like what else is out there? Like if I'm doing something right now and if you're not happy with it, there's a million other things you could do on the planet. There's a million different places you can go on the planet. So just sort of like buck up and do your own work, and your life's going to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is an amazing life. I often look at it and I'm curious how I was just sort of thinking about this analogy. I look at our life as a game, like a computer game, like a race car game or one of those shoot 'em up games. And we've got an avatar. And,
Yep.
and like, have you ever played those race car games?
Totally.
And you
Yep.
dial up, you've got to select whether you're going to have wet weather or dry weather tires or off-road tires, and the size of the engine and your fuel consumption. So you can have the big fast engine, but you're going to consume a lot of energy. So you might have to pit stop more often. So there's all those different things of this avatar that we have, and I believe we can change some things. And I also believe this, and this is one reason I try and push men to develop their intuition, because for me, once you develop that intuition, it's like a cheat in a game. In a game, you get, if you do a lap in the car in a certain time, it'll give you a turbocharge for 5 or 10 seconds, and that's helpful. But then it stops. But with intuition, it's like you've got that turbocharge forever. Like whenever you want to use it, it's there. So you've got this superpower that's not available to the other people in the race, and you can sort of then cruise a little bit. And it's just when I hit the main straight, I'll just put that turbocharger on, and I'll whip down the straight twice as quick as everyone else. And when it comes to cornering and everything, I can just back off a bit, and life's just easier. I don't have to be as intense for the whole race. I can just hit it hard down the main straight, pick up the speed, overtake a few people, and then just take it a bit easier. And so I'm wondering then, when people come to you guys and journey, I'm just trying to fit that into my analogy of life as a game. And we get to different levels and the racetrack changes. It's sort of, you can select 48 different tracks, but they're all similar parts, just put together different ways. It's the same lap around the same track, basically, but with a few different obstacles, a few bumps, wet corners, oil slicks, things like that. And so I guess, maybe journeying with the mushrooms could take you to it could be a new superpower, take you to a new level, give you X-ray vision for a while, etc. And once you've had that experience, you then realize, because I guess, Rob, if you'd have started to get a language together for seeing those auras around people in corporate meetings, in the boardroom meetings, and that lasted for a few years, but you got an interpretation. I got facial feature and a color. And then if those colors had gone away, you could still go back to the facial feature that the people were, with their emotional state at the time, happy, sad, angry, jealous, whatever. You would still then have that level of that ability to interpret what was going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's awareness. I think that's what we're hitting on, is like the intuition can expand your awareness, and your awareness can also expand your intuition. So it goes both ways, and a guided journey can help you. It can help you clear out the gray clouds that are skewing your perception. And it can clear out yesterday's traumas and dramas, allow you to have a deeper connection to the infinite well of wisdom within self. And then from that, there's like this expansion that takes place. And it's not about necessarily sitting in the boardroom saying, like, oh my goodness, I see like a purple light around your head. Like, we should really talk about Ascended Master Saint Germain right now and your spiritual connection to the cosmos. It's
You wouldn't do that?
It's translating it and synthesizing it in the boardroom to be like, hey, like, asking the question of like, what is it that like you really want to like bring through right now? There's something I can just sort of sense it within you. So it's demystifying it so that people don't think you're absolutely bonkers, even though I'm okay with that. Because I love my life. I love the life that we've created together, and more people are wanting to step into higher dimensions, and they know like, hey, like, we might have been sold a story that isn't quite complete, and there's more things for us to discover in being humans. And I think I jokingly say that a lot of the time humans are running around with diapers on. We're not quite aware of the actual spiritual technology, the energetic technology that the body has, and it's capable of healing. It's capable of seeing and sensing energy in this realm and other realms, and it's about being a bridge to the etheric, so that we can make those etheric energies manifest. And to make manifest is to bring into plain view. So it's learning how to translate the etheric energy using our own dictionary, our own synthesizer, and creating those things that, if I give you, Doug, a black box of nothingness, and give Gary a black box of nothingness, both of you that are going to synthesize and translate that energy in a different way. So in that black box, it has everything in it that you could create. But if you're not a dentist, you're not going to come up with a new technology in the field of dentistry. But if you're an artist, you're going to bring that through onto the canvas in a different way. Or if you're a writer, you're going to write different stories with that energy. So it's really letting people know that there's an infinite well of knowledge and understanding within yourself, that you have free reign. You get to actually take the reins and influence where you want to go and what you want to create in the world.
Yeah, very good. So just to move on now to the business. So people like just so if someone was interested and they're thinking, man, these guys are in Canada, I'd love to go to Canada, and make this part of my annual holiday. I'm going to go spend. So it's like, how long do they spend with you? What's the process leading up to it, after it? Can they combine it with their annual holiday to Canada, or does it or is it is it too much time involved and it's a whole big process and it's two very different thought processes? Is it something that you just come to you guys and do something and months later they go on their annual holiday? How does it all work?
We have had clients that have incorporated the time with us with time in a sort of recreational state, like going on a holiday, you might call it. But mostly our program is a 4-month program, and that would be 4 weeks leading up to the in-person. So we would work with you online anywhere in the world through Zoom. You would have homework to do to assist you on preparing yourself for the journey. Then, when you would make your way to Canada and British Columbia for 4 days, that usually is a Thursday to Monday, early arrival on Thursday and early departure on Monday. And in those 4 days, there would be 2 ceremonies with psilocybin, magic mushrooms, and 2 full days of integration. We are with you every step of the way. We pick you up at the airport and we take you back to the airport, and we're with you until you go to bed, and we're up with you in the morning for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There is an agenda, but it's very organic. There isn't a 9 to 5 sort of 9 we're doing this, 10 we're doing this. The only thing is 9 is breakfast, and that's about it. And there's still leeway there. But most of the time you are working on yourself. I would put it to your game thing. You're coming here to upgrade your controller. So it's time to change in the old PlayStation 1 and get upgraded to PlayStation 30 controller. So you are the controller of your life, and you're here to learn how to let go of the old habits of thinking, doing, and being, and create the path that you want to lead forward. And it might be the same path that you're on already, but it's just heightened your awareness to your decision making, to your conscious decision making. So after the 4 days with us, we always say clients reluctantly leave. There's scratch marks in the door. We always say clients are happy to leave and happy to stay. They are happy to leave because they want to go out into the world and use the new tools that they've been given and discovered. And we are with you for another 3 months of integration work. So overall, it's a 4-month container. After the journey for those 4 days, some clients do go travel, and some clients just go back home and sort of slowly integrate themselves back into their world.
Yeah, I remember at the end of my first 5-day energy clearing class, the teacher sort of said to us, now, you're all going back out into the world today. You're all leaving here. Just about all of you are going to an airport, and it will be different. And oh, was she right? Like it was so different. And the crazy thing was, like, we all left separately, and then I bumped into one of the other students at LAX. It was just like, how does that, like a big airport like that? And we had a bit of a chat. But yeah, it's that integration, because you're in the little bubble. There's 50 of you for 5 days, all learning all these new things, and you're doing, and you're as you were describing earlier, Rob, the energies of the world, going, aren't there, or the energies that are there are ones we enjoy. We're very comfortable. We're on that hot day. We're in the ocean, just sort of sitting up to our chests in beautiful, calm, perfect temperature water, and we're just like, oh, this is lovely. But now we, have to go out and face the storms of the world.
See the true colors of the world.
Yes. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, that our journeys are 1 to 4 people only, so it's very intimate and personal, and we like to keep it that way. And we find it works best not to have any more than that. There are ceremonies out there that like you participated, but I think yours is slightly different. You didn't really go into ceremony with medicine, but there are 50 to 70 people in a room, and you're right. There's different energies in the room that you're working with, and it's like we ask everybody to do their due diligence on seeking out. If this is what they're seeking out, then look into who the facilitator is and how many people are going to be participating in their journey space.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's that sounds very, and so British Columbia, that's on the west coast of Canada.
Correct.
Yeah, right. We're a 45-minute flight east of Vancouver, British Columbia, or Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
So that's the main port of entry that most people come through.
Yeah. So I've been to three different energy clearing classes, and one of them we had to fly into Seattle and then drive 3 hours east up over and it was in summer, and we went up over this pass, and there was like the people were still skiing up there. There was like one really high bit, and then
Mm.
yeah, so we went to this tiny, tiny little town called Plain in
Lame.
Plain, yeah, and it was a very tiny town, and we didn't sort of see a whole lot because there was incredible, this was 2018, there was incredible bushfires going on at the time, and
Mm.
they weren't near us, but all of the smoke was hanging very low for like
Mm.
the whole week. And it was, every time you went outside, it was just thick smoke just sitting, like there was no wind. And the
Mm.
fires were like a really long, long way away. We were not threatened at all by them. And there was no, there was a lot of emergency measures where they were, but every day the facilitator was looking up reading all about it, and we weren't bothered. But yeah, so that's the one time I've been there. And the weird thing was there, we have very strong drug laws here in Australia. I arrive in Seattle, I go to my B&B, totally out of time zones, and I've stayed there for a couple of days to get in the time zone. And I wake up the first day, I think, okay, I got to go and find something to eat. So I go walking down the street, and straight across the road is this weed shop. And I'm like, and I'm in a nice area. I wasn't in, and I'm like, weed shop. And then I keep walking, and then I go around the corner and stood looking for something to eat. And there's another weed shop. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I just was ignorant of the whole thing. And I wandered in, and there was no customers in there, just the guy behind the counter. And I said to the guy, it's all right, mate. I said, I'm not buying anything. I said, I'm from Australia, and I just can't believe this is real, like, or I'm in a dream, and he's, I've been, he'd been to Australia to some music festivals and stuff. So we had a chat for a little while, and he was sort of showing me all around, all the different things around. And there was a joint, and it was about 6 inches long, and I think it was about an inch round. And it was sort of like a gimmicky thing, it was like a big cigar. It was sort of something you'd buy someone for their 40th birthday or something, like in this little plastic case, sort of. Just I couldn't believe it. And all the the soft jelly, like
Gummies.
gummies. That's it, the gummies on the wall, and all different measurements of all different strengths. And yeah, it was fascinating. Yeah, it was yeah. I just, because I said to him, I said, mate, you wouldn't even walk into a place like this in Australia, or they'd throw you in jail for 10 years just for walking in the door, But yeah, different laws in different places. And I was not ready for that one at all. Yeah. But, yeah, very interesting. So, yeah, so the people, they're interested, they contact you, you send them some info, like, schedules and things like that. And how do you just run them on demand, or?
Yeah, so we meet everyone that comes through the experience. So we typically have 2 to 3 Zoom calls with people. We want to know where they're at in their life, where they're going, and then once we sort of have a good feel and sense for where they're at, where they want to go, and can we support them, then once they're accepted into the offering and they want to take that work on, then we would talk about dates and etc. And we do 2 journeys a month, and that could be two solos, it could be 2 power partners, or 2 group journeys. And it's we do 2 journeys a month for about 10 months of the year.
Right. And so if someone wanted to go individually, it's very possible that you would have other clients they wouldn't know. There might be 2 or 3 maximum other people
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
They don't have to collect a group of people. We do all that for you. And then some people opt just to do a solo journey without anybody else. Some people just want Rob and Gary to themselves, which is great. We love working that way
Mhm.
too. So,
And with the groups, if someone's coming as an individual into a group, we intuitively place people into groups. We don't just
slot them in.
fill a slot to fill that quota or that number. It's more about, will these people work well together in the setting? They're going to be together in a group for 4 months. They're going to be in person for 4 full days. Will they will they see how they can sort of reflect on what the other person is sharing to help them grow as well. So there's a beautiful, like, lifelong friendships, business partnerships unfold as well. New businesses are birthed, or a lot of our clients have birthed new businesses, and then we're now hiring them as service providers to come and support our business. So it's a beautiful symbiotic collective that's taking place.
Yeah, interesting. So even even the initial Zoom calls, you're together as a group.
Correct. Yeah. So you get to know who, like a face to the name, and when you show up, you're not complete strangers. You actually have an idea who you're going to be doing this journey with.
Yeah, nice, nice. Yeah, that's yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, very different to my experience when I was 14. Yeah, I've got to say. Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think the main difference was we didn't have Zoom back then. No.
Oh, of
Yeah,
course,
totally.
And
Yeah,
everything else. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I was just a naughty little boy
Who
who was
makes it
playing with drugs,
right?
trying to have
Exactly.
a trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of saving, because like I say, I wasn't joking before when I was saying I was, save up my lunch money to have fun on the weekend. We did. Me and my mates, we did save up our lunch money that, because we didn't, I don't know what it's like in Canada, but we watch American TV and all the kids go to the cafeteria or whatever it is, and they all get their free lunch. Well, we never had free lunch in Australia. We had like we called it a canteen or a shop or whatever, where there was volunteer mothers there, and they would make the food and we would buy it. And so we would all sneak some food from home into our bag and get the lunch money off mum, and then on the weekend we'd buy a half bottle of rum or something like that, and sort of sit in the park when we were 14 and drink it, because the drinking age in Australia is 18. So back
Okay.
yeah, we would have these drive-through bottle shops. So we would sit across the road in the park in the dark and wait till there was no cars in there. And then one of us was nominated. We got all the money, and we would run across the road and sort of say to the guy, "Oh, can I have a half bottle of that?" And they'd quickly put it in a brown paper bag, take your money and go, "Get out of here." And we'd run back across the street and then we might have like a 1 or 2 liter bottle of Coke, and we would sort of have a swig of Coke and a swig of the thing. And
Oh,
yeah, that was that was our buzz, for the weekend. We would sort of
yeah,
just roll around the park and just, do whatever. And yeah, so then, like tried a bit of weed and that sort of thing. And then it was like, okay, that was fun for a bit. Now let's try mushrooms. And yeah, yeah, it didn't fit into that criteria at all. It was not
kicked
fun.
your ass.
It just said, "Doug, you are a naughty little boy," was the message I
Yeah,
basically got. And go away and do not come back for a long time.
long time.
I got the message. Yeah, I got the message. Yeah,
Brilliant.
stop playing with that. Yeah, it was. I did like the fact it was free.
Mm.
Went out, my brother he was renting this sort of farm place in the middle of nowhere, and these little mushrooms were popping up, and he and his mates were telling me about them, and I thought, oh, this sounds like a cool thing. Yeah, yeah. They'd obviously had some nice trips on them, but yeah, it didn't happen for me.
Yeah, the mushroom is a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and most people, when they get themselves into a little bit of trouble, it's because they don't recognize that there's a teacher that's trying to teach them, and they're trying to buck that teacher and not listen to it, and they're wanting to have fun. And it's like, you're here to learn something from this. And that's like a big part of what, if we hear people talking about their trip or that they worked with someone else, we often ask them, what did you learn and how did it change your life? And if you can't answer either of those questions, then chances are you might not have been on a guided journey, or you might not have, you most likely were on a trip. So, and it's a powerful, powerful tool that can really help you in massive ways. And there's physical evidence to state that there's like neurogenesis happening. So your brain is rewiring, and um, there's emotional, mental release from old stories, and just greater spiritual awareness. And then that is something that when you come through a journey, it's like that doorway is opened up, and then you get to go to the spiritual gym every day and continue to exercise that muscle of like, oh, this is the access point. It's within me. And I can turn on my awareness of my innate heart intelligence and my intuition centers, and it can just make life a lot more peaceful, a lot more happy and content and easeful. So it's yeah, it's a potent teacher that can love on you in a big way.
So are you saying that there's new neural pathways like that connect up and are strengthened through the process, and that you can now choose to access those pathways?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you have to learn. It's like it's no different than if you go to yoga and you're in the yoga class and then you're all peaceful on the mat, and then you leave the yoga class and you're an absolute a-hole to everyone around you. It's like, well, then you didn't learn anything. You learned something, but you didn't implement it into your life. So it's taking what you learn and in the actual process and strengthening those habits. So the neural pathways are basically going to be reconstructed. So the old highways of your mind no longer work, and some of them have to be blown up and torn down so that you can start having new thoughts and feelings and actions. And the thoughts and feelings are typically about yourself and how you interrelate in your environment. So when you start to notice that, oh, I've started to change the inner monologue, the inner dialogue of how I relate to myself, then as a function of that, you change the inner monologue of how you relate to the people in your life. And then the outer monologue changes. And that's like one of the biggest things in life is your relationships with the people around you. And once you exercise that muscle and keep working at it, then it does strengthen, and the little tiny dirt road or the newly paved road becomes like a super highway that that new habit becomes deeply ingrained. And then there might come a time where that new habit after a number of years also has to go. And it's a sequential up leveling that you can take on. And a lot of our clients, when they come on a journey, they're like, wow, I've got a lot of work to do now that I've discovered so many things about myself. So they recognize that they have to work at it. It's not a quick fix. It's not an easy pill, or it's not a keys to the kingdom scenario. It's, oh, I've got to continue unlocking those doors within myself. And I am the kingdom or the queendom. And I'm the one that's going to nurture the innate intelligence and the intuition within myself so that my life can be better. My life can be different.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think if we've got an ultimate, before we're born, if we've got an ultimate thing that we want to achieve or learn or discover or experience here, I don't think we necessarily need to discover that at 35 years old. I think if we discover that just a week before we pass, on our 97th birthday, we've achieved it. So there's so many steps along the way to achieving that. And like you say, like you turn the dirt road, you put some bitumen over it. Now it's easier to travel down. And then 3 years later, you turn it into a 6-lane highway and it's really going. But then there is adaptations and changes because we're still not there. We think it's the journey all the time. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the destination. And
Mm.
like my dad, 2 years ago, he passed away at 92, and he was a stubborn old bugger. And he, like for the previous 15 years, he was wondering why he was still alive. He used to say those words, and he was trying to drink himself to death with alcohol and everything. And I watched him in that last week or two of life in the nursing home, and like still super stubborn. But he physically, in those last week or two, got to the point where he could barely get out of bed himself. And he had to rely on people. He had to give in. He had to give up. and just accept help because he physically couldn't do it anymore. And like he would swear at the staff when they would open his door because he was 99% deaf, so he never heard them knock. And he liked his privacy, and they would come in and he would tell them to F off out of the room. Like they were coming in to like fill up his water jug or something, like that. And he would just not drink the water because that would mean they would come in and fill it up. And he didn't want them in the room, like all this sort of, he was just so stubborn. And I just knew at the end there, I was just watching him and thinking, you are finally have had to give in. This is why you've been kept alive until you finally hit this point of just accepting help from, people who are there paid to come and help you, even though, he didn't want to be there. But yeah. So we have to reach those. And so if we can reach those places much earlier, much easier, with less resistance, it's going to make it a lot smoother, and you're going to be able to enjoy allowing people to help or allowing whatever needs to happen for a lot longer rather than just for a couple of days until we drop off. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, no, I think it's wonderful what you guys are doing, and I'm happy for the two of you that you've found a point and a place in your lives where you seem to be where you need to be. And, you might be having this conversation in 10 years' time with me or with someone else and sort of saying, oh, back in mid 2024, we thought we were really rolling on, and now we're sort of like, we're helping, like we're doing this sort of thing now. And it's like, and you look back at today and it's like, oh yeah, that was nice. Like who knows where we're going, like with the world and what we're doing. But it sounds like right now you guys are sort of like at the pinnacle of where you should be now. You're there, you're sort of like, like you're rolling on, you're allowing it to happen, you're going, and it's just wonderful to communicate and be around people with energy like you guys. I'm a selfish kind of guy. I just like to be around people like you guys and experience your energy and that sort of thing. So I thank you for that.
You're more than welcome. We'll send you the bill.
I'll send you an email address to send it to.
Oh gosh, no, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, this has been great.
All right. So I'm going to have all your contact details in the show notes of the podcast. Apart from that, is there any final things that you would like to say to those who are listening?
I always say, start thinking with your heart and love with your mind.
Beautiful.
I would ask your listeners the question of, ask yourself, why did I come here?
Because I certainly didn't come here to pay tax to live on Earth. Is that all I'm here for? Is to pay taxes? I came through all this trouble to grow up to pay taxes. Sorry,
someone else can help you with that. Yeah, that's a different podcast.
Yeah, different podcast. Totally. I hear you. And exactly, yeah. Why am I here? Yeah.
Why am I here? Yeah.
Big question, and I think we could answer that. Once a week we could ask ourselves that, and the answer would be slightly different each time if we acted on what the answer we came up with. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Beautiful. Well, thank you guys for all of the amazing information you've shared today, and the journey that the Journeymen Collective is on. And yeah, all right. And I wish you well, and I wish you to be not too busy, but as busy as you want to be with clients coming through who are having, I was going to say their eyes open, but it's a lot more than that. Their minds, their hearts, their everything's, going to fly wide open. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Brilliant, Doug. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforce trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.